Hey everybody, and welcome back to 80's horror films. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and we've got a fun one. I'm a little sick, so if my voice sounds a little different than it normally does, that's because it is. But I am here with a special guest. The last episode I had Madeline Deering, who's my co-host for 90's horror films, replacing him for Rebecca. But today I have my co-host for horror film lovers. Please welcome Michael McGlynn. How you doing, Michael?
Hey, I'm doing good. Sorry, everyone who's watching. I'm not as pretty as all those other ones he named off, but I mean, I'm better than chopped liver.
Ah, it's okay. You're pretty in your own way. How about
Oh,
that? We'll say that. Um, yes, we're here to talk about the 1983, I want to say. I think that's what I saw it as. Film Mausoleum. And Mausoleum is something I never even heard of. I saw it on Tubi. Saw it was 1980's. Any horror film that I see in the 80's, I plan it for a potential episode of 80's horror films. Even if I've never seen it, which this was a first time watch for me, and it sounded like it was yours too, right?
yep, it sure was.
Had you heard of this movie at all?
No, I went into this movie completely blind, and I will say pleasantly surprised. I overall actually really enjoyed it.
Overall, I did too. I mean, there was some really bad campiness, like some really bad campiness. We'll get into that. But like, you know what made up for it was I did not know John Carl Buechler did the special effects for this movie until after I saw the credits and saw that, and I was like, ah, John Carl Buechler, like one of my favorite uh you know special effects guys, and he's the director of like one of the best Friday the 13th movies in my opinion. Friday the 13th Part 7, you know. But he did a lot of the special effects I believe for Hatchet too as well. So for the first
Uh,
at least the first Hatchet. I don't know if he joined it for the other ones or not. You're a fan of John Carl, right?
Oh, absolutely. Again, I was with you. I had actually, I didn't even pick up on that. I did catch the end credits on that one. Uh, but you tell me that, and also about mentioning that he did it for Hatchet as well. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's like, obviously with the two different generation gaps between the films, obviously, but it was like the style of the gore and the lengths that both the Hatchet and Mausoleum both took. Oh yeah, I could definitely see some of that same vibage. So I'm not overly surprised to hear that actually.
Yeah, uh he's like everybody kind of talks about Tom Savini so much, and I think Tom Savini is was great, and he's definitely a very big inspiration for a lot of special makeup effects for people. But when it comes to like 80's gore and shit, like John Carl Buechler was like the guy to go to, and so we'll talk about some of the gore in this movie in a little bit. I wanted to give a little background on it. So here we go. Here's a little background. So I looked it up and I saw that it's directed by a man named Michael Dugan. Michael was the director of a movie called Super Seal. I'm not making that up. It's some kind of G-rated kids movie about a 7-year-old Marianne finds a baby seal who is abandoned, so she decides to take action into looking after him. She takes him to her grandfather, Captain Zach, who runs SeaWorld, to help look after him. Now, he says he who runs SeaWorld. I'm not sure if this was a SeaWorld like paid for thing or if that's just another company called SeaWorld before like the real SeaWorld took over because it was 1975. So, their seal, whom they call Captain Nemo, gets into all kinds of trouble and goes on incredible journeys. It's a musical and a family comedy.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to laugh. I'm just here thinking, like, just to be inside that director's mind, like, doing that movie, and then be like, you know what? I think after this, I'm going to do this horror movie called Mausoleum, and if you see Mausoleum, you're like, yeah, it's a big deviation from the whole family musical comedy route. I'll tell you that much.
Well, back in the 70s and yeah, and whatnot, a lot of genre directors were getting into family movies. Sean Cunningham, who did Friday the 13th, he directed a movie. I think it was originally called like Manny's Orphans or something, but it was like a baseball movie, baseball kids movie, but like not something like Bad News Bears type stuff, right? That was not like, and then he decided really what was gonna get him money was horror, because that's what made him money to begin with before he decided to get into because he had done Last House on the Left as well. He produced that. So but he didn't direct it. Wes Craven directed that movie and whatnot. But like that movie sort of I think I got him a lot of flack and he decided not to do horror for a little bit, did do a couple comedy, family comedies so he could get some investors and then went right back to horror. So some people do family stuff as well as horror. Some people do Christian movies and then they do horror,
Oh,
it's kind of weird, you know.
no, it is, but I mean, hey, I mean, whatever gets those investors in your corner, so you can do your passion projects, because it definitely kind of sounds a little bit like that, with especially with the way that it was presented. It almost kind of sounds like he does the family movies for the money and for the investors, so he can get that money to make his passion, which are horror movies, which I really wouldn't be overly that shocked about.
Right. Um After Mausoleum, he directed a movie called Raging Hormones. This was like from 83 to 99. Um and he was also a writer of one episode of Beavis and Butthead. So, and he wrote one episode of Santa Barbara, the soap opera. So he's done a few things. Recently he was the writer of a TV miniseries called The Adventures of Turkey Dude. I, I don't know. I just I kind of want to figure out what that's about. Um,
It's like,
Interestingly enough, the guy who plays Turkey Dude is Gene Snitsky, the wrestler, WWE Raw wrestler. So,
oh, I got a small little fun story about that actually. It was actually last year. I was at a Maryland Comic Con that was being run by Matt Burns, and
mhm.
one of my buddies, he runs a horror like a movie prop memorabilia shop. I always buy a lot of stuff from him, like Gremlin props, etc. His name's Scott Hewitt, and Scott's a big friend to a lot of the local celebrities and stuff. And Gene Snitsky actually lives in the Pennsylvania area, well, like over that little triangle area, like where like West Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania aren't like that far apart from each other. Um, and he was actually at his stand when I went over there to see him at the Comic Con, and I don't know what it was like, like just like the way he was acting and the way he was just chilling. I just didn't put two and two together, and I went over and I said hi to Scott, and I looked at the dude and I was like, hey man, I was like, hey, has anyone ever told you you look like that dude from WWE? God, what's his name? Snitsky, I think. And then he's like, yeah, no one's ever said that to me. And then well, Mrs. P. Scott, he leaned over, he was like, Mike, that is Gene Snitsky.
What?
Oh yeah, Scott, he would then leaned over to me after I said that, and he goes, Mike, that is Gene Snitsky. Like, oh my god! But you know what? Nicest, sweetest dude in the world. I mean,
Right.
and he has such a great sense of humor. Later, like Scott introduced us and everything, and later on in the show, we cross paths again, and he saw, goes, "Wait, oh my god, you look like this dude I know. His name's like Michael McGlynn, I believe was his name. You look just like that dude." I was like, "Okay, I deserve that." But Sorry, I didn't mean to get off topic. It's just
No, it's fine. That's funny. I bring people up, and I'm not really into the WWE or the wrestling or anything, so I don't really. I wouldn't have even come up to him and said that. I just would have said, "Hey, bro, what's up?" Kind of thing. That's it. Like, I wouldn't have been like, "Oh, you look like that guy." I would have been like, "Hi," I would have probably said, "You look like a wrestler," and he would have been like, "Yeah, I get that a lot." Or whatever, kind of thing. Or I never get that, whatever. So anyway, yeah, so turkey dude. So next time you see him, be like, hey, you remind me of that turkey dude. Apparently that's who he plays in this. I'm not kidding. Um, so Michael Dugan did that. The writers of the film, and I say writers, I don't know why it took like three people to write the script, but all right. Robert Barrick, this is the only thing he's done. Robert Madero, he had done a movie called Black Generation. Um, it's a drama music movie. Um, White Hot, starring Robbie Benson and Tawny Kitaen. Um,
yeah.
All Tied Up. Camp Utopia, which I know of because it's from Tempe. They put it out. And a movie called Battered from 2014.
Tony Contain was actually one of my favorite supernatural movies. Witchboard,
Nice.
good.
Yeah. I have Witch Trap. I need to get Witchboard on Blu-ray.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, that was like one of those like under the radar kind of gems. I've but the funny thing is too, like I'm actually kind of really enjoying that we're actually doing this like right now. The fact that we both went into this movie blindly and now we're kind of learning about this because like with you saying like writers like multiple writers, I was like once again. Just like when you talk about the special effects, like okay, that makes a little bit of sense. Like, not that the story was bad; it really wasn't bad, but it definitely felt it definitely a little bit of that too many hands in the cookie jar kind of vibe to the story at
Yeah,
times.
like my biggest problem with this movie, and by the way, the other writer was Catherine Rosenwink, and she had only done Mausoleum as something she wrote. After then, she worked on she was a worker in employment exchange, so she played an actress in a movie called Mothers Do Have 'Em. I don't know what that means. I'm a little worried to find out what they have. Um, what? I don't know. And it's not have, it's like Av, like AVE, like
Mm.
apostrophe AVE. I don't know. It's weird. And then she was also the assistant to executive producers on the TV show Alice for 3 years or 3 episodes. So
Okay.
yeah. Um, but that's all that I can find of hers. One of the producers, Michael Franzesi, I think that's how you say his name, or Franzesi. He is the uh so I think he wrote this himself, by the way. This is his like This is his biography, and it's the funniest thing. Listen to this. Michael Franzesi grew up the son of the notorious underboss of New York's violent Colombo crime family. As Franzesi rose within the ranks, he was estimated to have been making 5 to 8 million per week from a gasoline bootlegging scheme involving the Russian mafia. He survived countless grand jury appearances, 3 state indictments. This is on his biography about him as a person. Like as a I like this usually for IMDb biographies, they don't go into like personal shit, like that. They just say like they won like 3 awards from this grand jury thing, like whatever. They don't talk about like this. This is gonna be. He survived countless grand jury appearances, 3 state indictments, 2 federal racketeering trials, 8 years in prison, and mafia death sentence. He is the only high-ranking made man still working in the prime earning years to publicly walk away from the mob and live to tell about it. In
Oh my
19
God.
what?
I'm so sorry. It just clicked my mind. Michael Franzini. I actually watch his YouTube channel. He
Yeah,
has a channel.
I
What
know.
is called?
I love his YouTube channel. I subscribe to it. I think it's great. It's
Yeah.
hilarious. I didn't
Oh yeah.
realize he produced this movie. How I found out about him is I reviewed a movie called Knights of the City that he produced, and I looked him up and I saw all this information and was like, holy shit, this guy worked for the mob, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
he's always had that online issues with John Tutorio, the Bull. They no, they've had differences of opinions on how events went down. I guess is the best way to put it.
yeah. So he has produced or whatever. I think usually executive produced. So you executive Mausoleum was his first one, right? Then he did a really big hit after that, which was Savage Streets. Um,
Okay.
After that, he did Knights of the City, which wasn't a big hit, but I watched it on YouTube and was like, this is fucking fantastic. It's such a like if the Warriors were like a musical, you know, that's how I would describe it. It's just fantastic. Um,
I could get down with that. That could be fun.
like it was like dance and it was dancing. So it was like if the Warriors met breaking, that kind of thing. Like it was ridiculous dancing and shit. It was fun.
Or we
And then he
fight.
produced a movie in 2016. So he hadn't actually produced anything since 1986 up until 2016 when he produced a movie called Dance Angels. He has a movie called Billion Dollar Boss in development right now.
Sounds
Um,
mafia style movie. Which I mean, if he's producing it, I mean, I would be more inclined to see it because not that the story would be like anything historically accurate, but I think the sequences of how things are shown will be pretty accurate, probably.
this was put out by Vinegar Syndrome on a Blu-ray release, and I would be interested to see what extras that they have on that, like if they have a commentary or kind of thing with the makers of this movie or whatever talking about it, because I guarantee there's some fun stories there. Uh so in the trivia it said it was produced by Yuppie Don Michael Franzese, former capo of the Colombo crime family. It was allegedly a form of money laundering. Whether it was a passion for film or simply a business venture is unknown. Um, so it was just a way, and I think that's actually smart. Like when you have like that much money and you don't want people to sort of steal it from you, kind of thing, or whatever, or get it traced back to you, you just put it into film. Film. So hey, all you mob people, if you want to fund my movie, come find me. I just don't want to be, sleeping with the fishes. See?
Yeah. That's actually really cool that he produced it, especially Mausoleum. I mean, that's actually not a bad crack at, to be honest, for one of his first attempts. I mean, like I said, like it's a good movie overall. I mean, like it's one of those under the radar '80s movies. Definitely the gore factor was definitely pretty darn impressive in my opinion. Like I wasn't expecting that level of gore. I was like, wow, okay, like this actually really has my attention. Actually,
Hmm.
like I want to see all the other deaths that happen, and actually, I'm glad I kind of went in with that mentality because I think I can probably speak pretty openly on this one to say that it didn't disappoint.
Mm-mm. Did not disappoint. Um,
No, sometimes you get those movies where like you get one good open kill, then the rest are like, yeah, you blew your whole entire budget on that first one, and now it's all going to be real cheap ones. And
this one had like, yeah, like it kept trying to up itself each time, I feel like.
we like like every time like when I kept on seeing one, I was like, oh, that's probably the best one. And kids like, oh no, no, oh wow, no, you did better. Oh yeah, you did real good on that one. It just it kept on getting better and better. I'm like, all right. I mean, so yeah, I mean the effects, yeah, definitely kudos. for the effects alone and the gore, I'm actually surprised this movie didn't get a little bit more notoriety or at least like notice like especially like in the 80's during that craze time. I mean, this movie just seems like one that would be right up for the books, kind of like Graduation Day or some of those other ones where like for whatever reason it kind of flew a little under the radar from I mean, I guess because the mainstreams were just taking everyone by storm. No one really was paying that much attention to the lower end ones because you're getting the Friday the 13th, the Nightmare on Elm Streets, the Halloweens, and
Well,
the
I mean, this was 83, so even Nightmare on Elm Street didn't come out till like a year later, you know. I think at the time, probably in the 80's, it did well enough, but it just sort of became like this forgotten sort of movie, I think, you know. I almost feel like Paul should have put it on Forgotten Horror Classics, but it's not a classic, you know? Like to me in my own sort of way. Like it's definitely it feels more forgotten. Like I haven't really heard anybody talk about it, you know, and stuff. So, but it's not really a classic. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's really. I think it has too many flaws with the story, you know, that kind of ruins it, you know, to being a classic.
Yep. And I think one of their fallbacks to it, I mean, I know we're gonna, I mean, obviously, I know I assume we can talk little spoilers, but this isn't really much of a spoiler or anything like that. But I think part of the problem was it almost came off as a vibe, a little bit of a overly sexual, overly sensual Carrie.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, no, I agree. That's sort of yeah, I would say that. You know, the so okay, let's actually let's go into the storyline or the story, you know, of it really. But like basically it starts off with 10-year-old what's her name? Laura or
I think
uh Susan. Susan.
okay, no, well, I'm lost.
10-year-old Susan attends her mother's funeral with her aunt Cora. Maybe Laura and Cora, then maybe that's where it's Laura. I don't know. Cora, Nomad. Um I'm gonna start off the bat and say that I really didn't like the fact that like this demon like would just get the first females of the name because I'm like, so it's very confusing. So does that mean that what happens if like the it becomes a male with no females in their bloodline anymore? Is this demon just done?
That's a good point. I mean,
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So, you know, I mean, if I were somebody, I would just be like, you know what? If this just keeps happening to these people and everything, they keep getting possessed or whatever, let's just stop, you know, having kids for this time being. Just kill off the bloodline for, whatever. And that's
let's
it.
start.
What?
let's start adopting.
Yeah, let's start adopting. That's fine. Then the demon's like, damn it, almost had them. You know, so she's in the grave, like they just put her mom in the grave, I guess, and doesn't look like much of a funeral because there's nobody else there but them two, right? I was like, I guess they're gonna get extras that day. I mean, it looked pretty small, thing. And so Cora is trying to get the 10-year-old girl to just go home with her, and she's like, I hate you, leave me alone. I'm a brat. She runs off, and the girl's like, "No, Cora!" Or no, Susan. Sorry, no, Susan,
Going.
don't go. I'm not gonna run after you. I'm just gonna stay here and say no.
Oh,
While she runs, and she runs really slow. By the way, I don't know why I see this all the time because it's not in slow motion. It's just her running slowly in a way. Like she did not run as fast as like I would imagine her going. I'm like that her aunt could easily catch up to her and just grab her and say, "No, you got to go in the car and we're going home. Do not go anywhere near that mausoleum because apparently that's where everybody gets possessed and then turns into a demon sometime later. You
And
know,
that's why I wasn't a very good aunt because she put in very little effort to grab her.
yeah. She, I would have been just like, fine, go live with your demon. It's fine, whatever. You don't want to live with me. I don't care. But so later, like cuts to like years later, Susan is now an adult, and the aunt is talking to the psychiatrist guy that she's friends with. I guess. I don't know. Is that like her psychiatrist?
I believe so. I think it's someone she had to start seeing when she was a kid, and the psychiatrist, I think, was kind of, starting to, I don't want to say Dr. Loomis because that would insinuate that.
He reminded me of Donald Pleasance. Like I was surprised that Donald Pleasance didn't take that role.
It's one of those ones where, like, I feel like his character, like, it was kind of like lightly sprinkling like a Dr. Loomis esque character, and I would say maybe like the priest from the original Amityville.
Okay. Yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Um,
kind of had a little bit of that kind of like tone to him, but yeah.
so it's like the whole time he like doesn't believe any of this crap. He thinks, and then she even gives him like the book. Like they have a family diary, I guess. That like explains everything. And okay, okay. Here's a big plot hole. They have put in the research about everything in the family diary, and they say all you need to do is put the crown of thorns on the head of the person who's possessed, and everything will whatever, right?
It will all end.
Yeah. So why hasn't this happened before? Why is it taking this many years for somebody to just go grab that crown of thorns and just put it on the demon's head?
Yeah, I mean, especially when they're in the childlike form. I mean, it's like that's a little bit. But I mean, I guess in all fairness, she's still pretty powerful because even in the opening, when she ran into when she was in the little girl form, still, she even ran into the mausoleum and made that one dude's head explode.
Yeah, random guy. I thought he was like the grave digger or something, but somebody in another video called him a bum. So I'm like, was he just a bum that was living in the mausoleum and was like, hey, what are you doing in my home? Get out.
Yeah, I was kind of with you on that one actually. I actually thought that he was like a grave digger or something. He kind of looked like one to me, but I mean, maybe he was. Maybe he was a bum.
I think he was because at the end of the movie, Ben is the grave digger or whatever, which made absolutely no sense to me. Like I was very confused. Why? I thought he died, you know? But did he not die? Is that another person what the fuck just happened at the end? But I mean, uh,
It's ghost ship all over again.
what?
It's ghost ship all over
I
again.
know. It's like, what the fuck just what, huh? This is very confusing. So, and then what is it? They put, so he the Dr. Loomis guy says to Ben, the gravedigger, and you don't know it's Ben because his head's cut off. I'm like, they're gonna reveal who the gravedigger guy is, right? And then he's like, oh, just like your father before you, blah blah blah, right? So I was thinking maybe it was the father before him was the guy that got his head blown off, in the beginning. But none of it, like, none that's just me speculating because it was never explained, Like, that's just me throwing out shit to just make things somewhat stick to make some sense to the story.
No, no, I totally get that, and also that's not a bad theory and stuff. Like I said, like I went into it blindly, like I didn't know what to expect on that one. But I am with you though. The story had some loose ends. That's why, like we were talking earlier, even I was like saying, yeah, when you told me it had multiple writers, I wasn't surprised about that because The
Yeah,
story
too many cooks spoil the soup, pretty much. Like they put just too much paprika in it, too much different other shit, and they put a shit soup out there, in a way. Like it's a soup that you can taste, and you're like, this could have been better had just one cook worked on it.
exactly. I mean, it's like I think part of the problem was they didn't know which way they wanted to go. I think for a part of the movie, and stuff like did it want to be more of like a crazy gore fest, psychological, like kind of like not really psychological, but more of like more of just like that supernatural, I guess.
Supernatural stuff, yeah.
Or do you want to go more like demonic cult esque? And I think that's where the lines kind of got blurred in this one. Is like they just weren't sure which way they were going to go on that one. Uh,
Maybe they just wanted to like please everyone and they gave him like a mixed bag of stuff. But the problem with doing that is like it confuses the audience. I've talked about this on other podcasts before, but I had a great talk with Steve Lemmy from Super Troopers once,
oh,
and I had him on my radio show back in the day, and he was talking about how he was on a plane with this old lady, and this old lady looked at him and was like, "You look familiar. Are you in the movies?" And he said, "Yes, actually, I am." He's like, "Well, what have you done that I may have seen?" And he goes, "Have you seen a movie called Super Troopers?" And he described it, and she said, "No." I was like, "Okay, I was in a little movie called Beer Fest, blah blah blah." Nope. And then he goes, "How about Club Dread?" And he explained Club Dread to her, and she goes, "Oh yeah, that's the movie I saw. That sucked." And he
oh,
goes, excuse me, do you remember the part where I said I acted and produced those movies and wrote them, you know?" And she's like, yeah, well, they still suck. And 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 he goes, "Okay, okay, but please explain why you didn't like it, to me so I can, understand." And her problem with the movie was it was too funny to be a horror film and too horror film like to be a comedy. And it really confused her when she was watching it, like whether or not she was watching a comedy or a horror film. And I mean, it was both, but it was just too confusing for audiences that aren't people who watch horror, horror comedies all the time. And I was like, that's fantastic. Like that's a really good example of somebody actually giving you a pretty good critique. And he loved that she said that to him because it really kind of helped him understand why they did get a lot of flack for Club Dread. It didn't nearly do as well as Super Troopers or Beer Fest did, you know?
oh yeah, no, I mean, in all fairness, full disclosure, of all the Brooklyn Lizards, and I'm a big Brooklyn Lizards movie fan. Matter of fact, we have one of their movies where like the whole entire Brooklyn Lizards crew signed it, and it just so happens that movie happened to be a little gem that I happen to love dearly. It's called Club Dread.
I mean, I can get people not liking it, but I can also like I love it. I think it's one of my favorite films. I'm sad it's not even on Blu-ray. Like they never released it on Blu-ray. I've got haven't released their first movie on Blu-ray either, which is Puddle Cruiser. Like
Oh
if
yeah,
those movies get on, that's my favorite of their movies. It literally goes Puddle Cruiser, Super Troopers, Beer Fest, no, Club Dread, Beer Fest, and like I believe they've been sort of going down, in my opinion, not going up, but their down is still up high for me. And we'll
uh,
probably do Club Dread for horror film lovers at some point because if
oh,
we both love it. Yeah.
I love that one. Have you seen their newest one, Quasimodo?
I didn't like it. No. I, I
Yeah,
I really did not like, and
that.
this coming from a Brooklyn Lizard fanatic, like I love their stuff. I just thought it was like not that funny.
No, I mean, like I felt like they were kind of more going through the motions. Like it didn't feel like a passion project like the others did. Like all the others, like you could tell it was a movie they really wanted to do and they really got into it. I just felt like the jokes fell flat. They didn't really take any chances, and maybe it was because like of like the distribution they were going, because I think that ended up being like a Hulu original or something. So
Yeah. I think
maybe
a
they had.
Netflix original or something.
Oh
I
yeah,
saw on Netflix. But yeah, you're right. I think it was whoever paid for it said this is what we want, give us this. And what
we
they
went.
tried to sort of do was give us like the Super Troopers version of History of the World Part 1, and I felt like it just wasn't funny enough, like it bored me a little bit, and so I kind of stopped it after like 15 minutes. Now, maybe it gets better and maybe I'm wrong to do that, but like I just, you know, in my opinion, none of the other movies have ever bored me, you know.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no,
so
even
I
even the lesser ones like that, like because I mean, if we have kind of a little bit of opposite order, like Pelt Cruisers is more on the back end and on the ones I like the most, but I still do like it a lot. And like even Slam and Salmon is like, do I think do I for me? And this is all personal opinion. Like I prefer Club Dread, Beer Fest, Super Troopers, uh, but even with that, I can still say I still would easily watch those and have a Brook Lizard's Day.
I could
Quasimodo
put
is
I could put the Slam and Salmon on my list. Yes, of
uh,
things because I've watched it all the way through a couple times and I've liked it. It's just probably my least watched of their movies because I just don't feel like it has a lot of the jokes. Like it felt like Super Troopers doing Waiting, like the movie Waiting and everything. And it's funny because at one point Kevin Smith was gonna do clerks in a restaurant. It was gonna be called Bussing, you know. It wasn't about the waiters, it was about the bus boys, I guess, or whatever. So waiting sort of did that for him in a way, Like, yeah. But yeah, so you're saying but this Quasimodo one didn't do anything for you.
yeah, no, I mean, like that was the first movie of theirs that if I want to have a big Brooklyn Lizards weekend and just watch all their movies, that's one that like it would probably be at the very end because it would be one of those ones where like if I really want to still watch something, I'm really into it, then sure I'll put it on. But if I have my fill for the weekend and I can easily pass it.
Yeah. I think I would pass on it. No offense. But it's not for me. However, this movie, Mausoleum, that we're talking about, I think this movie, and like once again, going back to why Club Dread didn't work is they had too much comedy. I think you're right that this movie had too much other stuff going on for it. Like, it does uh it does the gore, but also does have a little psychological ting to it. It's got a little this or that, and it just feels like just too much. And so, um, but going back to the story of it, after we meet the adult her, we meet the adult Susan with her husband Oliver. I absolutely loved Oliver. Probably my favorite character in the whole movie. Mainly because he was the audience, Like he was the one that everybody had to relate to, everybody had to connect with, and everybody had to love. And I feel like he did it. What's his name? The actor's name? God, what is that not going up? Marjo Gortner. That is that's a
Okay.
name. Um,
Yeah. It's
Interestingly enough, he was in the 1978 film Star Crash, which I've heard of. I think it's on Tubi. Um, and let's see. He was also in Earthquake. Remember
okay.
that movie? I
Now
have that
that
on Blu-ray. Yeah. He was in Bobby Joe and the Outlaw. And a bunch of other stuff. He's been in a lot of films. Then the girl in it, Bobby Breezy 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 Um She was in Ghoulies.
Uh,
She was in Star Slammer or The Adventures of Star Slammer. She was in a movie called Armed Response. I think she gets naked in most of them, you
well,
know.
I mean, she got naked in this one too.
Like okay, so I saw, she got naked the first time. I'm like, "Oh well, she got naked." Like some people would not be okay with that, but she seemed okay. Then she got naked again, and then again, and
Again.
again. And I'm like, I almost feel kind of sorry for her, like having to be naked all that time, like when, I mean, of course she obviously doesn't mind. She's probably getting paid handsomely for it. But still, like it just feels sort of awkward in a way. Like, I don't know, like a lot of people go, "Oh my God, 80, especially 80's horror films, they have to have nudity and blah blah blah." And I'm like, today especially, I don't need to see it. If it's there, that's okay. I'm not gonna like pitch a fit because like I'm okay with seeing titties. But
Well, especially
I
the 80s. I mean, nudity was a staple for 80s horror.
right, it was, but it like it didn't have to be so much. I feel kind of awkward at times after watching that, but yeah.
Well,
Um,
I mean, especially when, like, she was sleeping with other men. When, like, it's like you said, even like, we all actually liked the husband. He was actually a legitimate nice guy, and you
well,
actually, I felt bad for him.
she even jokes at one point about sleeping with somebody else, and
Exactly.
he like kind of jokes around with it, but I'm like thinking, dude,
Dude, she
she's
ain't.
this is true. This is real. She's
She
really
ain't.
doing this. But I guess it didn't matter because spoiler alert, he dies later in the
Yeah.
movie, you know. Um my the saddest death in the movie, in my opinion.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%.
Because almost everybody else deserved it except maybe Cora didn't deserve it. I didn't feel like because she was doing nothing but trying to help her freaking uh, niece. Like why did she deserve to get her like whole chest ripped out, or whatever while floating up up in the thing. That was pretty awesome though. That was probably my favorite special effect in the movie. Um,
I
but
would probably even argue that the delivery guy probably didn't deserve it either. Like, it's like, hey, look, someone ordered it. Like, I didn't
well,
throw.
I,
I'm just delivering.
he did almost like assault her, you know. Um, like yeah, well let's go through the deaths because, I think they're pretty cool. Like some of them are pretty neat, and pretty crazy. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so the first one that dies is the some random dude. Like, who was this guy? He was just like, he was at the club that she was at. He was talking to his girlfriend, and she's like, "You keep looking at her, blah, blah, blah. Stop looking at her. Pay attention to me." And then he's like, "Fuck you. I'm gonna keep looking at her." And she's like, "Well, I'm not gonna be with you." Like, leaves. And then he just goes, Oliver gets a phone call. I'm like, how did the people know he was at that club? He must
Mm-hmm.
have told them, but like we don't know that information. So like to me, it's just like they randomly knew where he was, and maybe they have a tracking on him or something. Like you
Well,
know,
nothing really being important. He probably said, "Look, you can reach me at this establishment. I'll be there," or something. I mean,
yeah,
for that time era, it wasn't unheard of.
you're right. So anyway, so he got a phone call. He left, and then the dude comes over to her, starts trying to dance with her, and she's like, "Leave me alone." Pushes him away. Eventually gets away. Then the dude comes out of when they're leaving because, he has to go back to work. She's like, "I'm fine. I want to go home anyway." And as they're leaving, the guy like pushes into them and it's like all
Yeah.
drunk and shit. Um, and first of all, he's drunk and they're like all okay with like letting him drive. And I'm like, dudes, this is not in 2023. Like in 2023, you could not write a scene where some dude goes and gets into a car drunk. There'd be a million people there going, no, 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 buddy, we'll call you a cab. Call you a cab. Well, because so many people nowadays are scared of fucking drunk drivers. But in the 80's, they were doing that so much that nobody even, I mean, didn't even think about it. That wasn't even a problem. I mean, it was a problem, but nobody like ever really, people make jokes about it too or shit. I'm like, it's not the same as today. Um,
And that's a big mishap, bro, in that scene right there too. Now that you mention it too, because if you remember when they first came out there, they were acting like it was a valet kind of
that's
service.
what I thought.
And but yeah, when the dude came out, he just walked right on out to his car, and I was like, "Well, wait a minute. If it is valet service, you would have been handing off your keys to them, and they would have gotten the car for you and brought it to you. That's
That's
how
right.
it works.
Yeah. So they keep your keys. So
Yeah, you
how
hand
does
you,
that even make any sense? Unless like some people don't want the valet.
I mean, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe he just said, "Forget that. I'm not like
Maybe he found a good parking spot because it was like right outside the front door, or whatever. So he found the parking spot and didn't need the valet to like park his car, you know. I don't know. It just depends on how rich that place is, Like, do they only do valet or do they allow you to park your own car? You know,
And,
um,
and
no
to
idea.
all watching, let that be a lesson to you. Always get the valet. It could save your life.
It could save your life. You might not get her some chick may not take her green eyes and explode your car, you know. Um,
But with that being said, though, I'm not gonna lie. When I saw him get killed in the car and everything, I was just thinking, I was like, well, you know what? At least on the brighter note, there's probably some couple out there or some family out there who's driving right now who's probably going to get to go home tonight because this dude didn't get to pull out all
well,
drunk.
that's that. And the other idea, like, because I thought about it and I was like, this guy seems like an asshole, but he only seemed like an asshole around her. So I'm wondering if like the demon thing has some kind of like power over people, you know? Like because she wasn't even looking at that dude before he came and bothered her, right? So he wasn't even she wasn't even putting out anything for, like that. So it was weird. Um so let's see what else. So yeah, the car explodes and fucking the dude tries to go and open up the door and shit and get him out and everything. And I'm like, dude, like you want to blow up too? Like what the hell? You know? Um I was actually waiting for the wife to stop doing that and be like, "No, Oliver, come back over here." Right? Like but she doesn't do that. She just lets it, explode. But yeah, it's got a little bit of carry because like she's just kind of making it happen with her
Mm-hmm.
mind, her demonic mind is just
He's
making shit
cold blooded.
happen. What?
She was being cold blooded.
I know. Pretty fucked up. But so he explodes. So that's one death, the first death. The second death is the gardener, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
That
he
happened
was
the first 30 minutes, both deaths. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this movie. I'm like, they're running out of people already. Who else are they gonna kill? Like,
don't worry. They
don't
found
they figure that out. I mean, there's a couple more people that you did not get to meet that you just randomly get to meet. That just you just kind of feel sorry that they just get into the way of this chick, Um,
that dude at the mall.
well, yeah, we'll get to him in a second, but the second guy's Gardner, and the first time you see him before they go to the club, he's acting a little weird around her, like he's kind of into her or some shit, and the
Oh, definitely.
the husband's just like, I think he has a little crush on you, kind of thing. And so then later we see him, and he's sort of working on the yard. He's doing a lot of other shit, sleeping and shit and other stuff. I don't know what, drinking coffee. That coffee scene. Oh my
Oh,
God. That was
oh,
so weird. I was like
very creepy and very uncomfortable.
very uncomfortable. Like he's just like kind of like he's trying. He's trying to have her cheat on him or whatever, cheat with him. And so they sort of she's kind of like, "Oh, that's your coffee. All right, you got your coffee, Then go back to work. Go back. Leave me alone. Stop staring at me, weirdo."
Yeah.
And so he goes back out, does whatever. Then he's chopping on some wood. He's trying to get that stump out, I guess, or whatever. And he looks up and he sees her like flashing him and
Hmm.
shit. And so he knows, all right, there's something going on here. So he, talks to her, then eventually he gets to go into the garage with her, which I was like, out of all the places to fuck, the garage, like, huh? Like I didn't get that. Like, I guess it's better than to be caught like in the bed with the person, but like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna go screw in a garage. If some woman said that, I'd be like, no, that sounds like a serial killer type shit. No, I'm not down with that. You know? Like they're like, let's go in the basement and have sex. I'm like, no. I've seen too many true crime videos. No, bad
It's
idea. But so they have sex in the garage, and he is the weirdest motherfucker in the world. Like
hmm
he is like she claws him at one point because she's a demon. I guess that's what they do when they have sex. He's like all into it and shit. And and then she's like on her side after they had sex, and she's like her eyes are all glowing green and stuff. And I'm just like, and we can hear the sound. Can he not hear that? Zzz, you know, so annoying too. That was my least favorite thing in the world because I'm like, ugh, it's this terrible sound.
And that
Um,
constant loud chiming score.
oh yeah, yep. Um, so then she kills him with like a fucking I don't know if it's a pitchfork or something kind of thing, like a mini pitchfork or something. But she like stabs him and he's dead. And that was a pretty cool death. I mean,
Oh,
what was
I
that?
mean, I didn't think it was a bad death at all. I definitely thought it was good. I'm not. I don't say it was the best one of the film,
Nope.
but it was a good one.
We'll get to the best ones in a second. So I think that is the next one is the best one because I think the next one is her aunt, Cora. When
Oh,
she's just coming to visit her and check up on her and she comes upstairs and sees her like a demon. And she's already okay. So first of all, she's talked to the doctor, and the doctor has sort of told her that or no, she's told the doctor that something's weird going on with her. She's starting to change and stuff like that. She knows this stuff, you know? And so then when she sees her again, she notices like the complete big change, in her or whatever, that she's a fucking flat out demon. And so she lifts Cora up, pulls her to the side of the banister and stuff, and then rips out her like insides and shit. Shit was awesome. That was the best death. I swear to God, that I don't think any of the other deaths beat that. I mean, some of the other ones were really cool, but that was just like fucking brutal, you
yeah.
know?
That one definitely was way up there. Uh, the the next one I think was the delivery guy. I was a big fan of his. To the whole like face melting and the eyeball dripping off the face
Yep.
into his stuff. That was pretty wicked.
Yeah, and then the was it the man at the mall who was like, "Oh, you can't have that picture. It's taken." She was like, "I want it." She's like she was like the first Karen, you know,
OG.
the OG Karen. She's like, I want it. That's mine. I'm gonna call your manager and get that painting, you know. And so the guy turns his back on her and talks to somebody else, and she takes the painting and runs. And you think, oh, that's it. But nope. The guy turns and tries to call her out, so she lifts him up in the air. And okay, so you're in a mall, right? A pretty cool mall. Like it was pretty neat looking, you know? But you're in a mall and you see some guy floating up in the air and then like crashing or whatever, right? And everything. But you see this woman with like green eyes, like staring at him. Wouldn't you think that maybe like you call the police and say this bitch somehow is the one who did it? I don't know how she did it, but you know, I,
I mean,
something, you
it's a
know.
tough. I was like, yeah, she had glowing green eyes. I think she levitated him to his death. They'll probably lock you up before they go lock her up.
That's true. I'd be like, dude, I think you're a little nuts in the
But
head.
I really like that scene a lot too, actually, like that in that death, because that's one that actually threw me for a curveball. Because I thought for sure when I saw that scene, I already knew what was going to happen to a point. I was like, okay, I get it now. I was like, you want to get an extra death in, but maybe the budget's getting a little tight now, so you're going to do a quick, easy death. Which hey, y'all been giving us some great gore kills here, so kudos. You deserve a pass. Like so, I thought for sure it was gonna be one of those ones where like he gets dropped and you hear him yell and see him fall, and then next thing you'll see him you'll see him laid out on the ground, with just like a pile of blood next to him or something like that. Something you can get away with on the quick and easy. But then only to find out like nope, he fell and he was dropped like right onto something that completely impaled him and it was completely sticking out. You had
Right.
gore and all that, like intestines all hanging off of it and everything. I was like, nope, they didn't disappoint again.
Nope. That was pretty cool. I like that. Then yeah, so then after his death, Oliver's death, I think was the last real death. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think yeah. Because then after that it was her husband who they were just having a good time. He was being he should have known, man, because like that doctor warned him, like she's possessed or something fucked up with her, you gotta stay away from her. And he loved her and wanted to try to help her as much as he could. And she turned on him finally, which was weird because she never turned on him before, right? There were plenty of times she could have just been like, "You just keep meddling in my business. I'm gonna murder you." Like when he called the doctor and got the and forced her basically to go see the doctor, which is one of my favorite scenes. I love the doctor scene. And
Mm-hmm.
like the hypnosis scene was pretty fucking cool. But she she killed him, his intestines and shit are hanging out and everything and went on in the bathtub, so those were some really cool deaths. And then the makeup
Oh,
effects on the demon were awesome, you know.
Oh, that is true. I mean, good point too, because yeah, we've definitely been more focused on the gore, but yeah, no, the special effects makeup for the demon, no, once again, for a movie that was in the unknown and and like I said, under the radar, I was really surprised by how good the effects were. I mean, I would say, especially for that time era, it's right up there with any of the ones that people looked at the table, like the Ghoulies or like any of those other well-known ones. I know The Being was another one that used to get a lot of love for its creature special effects. Uh, I kind of feel like this one was maybe not on par with them, but they were in the same ballpark. They definitely were. They weren't far behind them.
Right. No, I totally agree. Um, and so yeah, so some of my favorite scenes, I'll tell you this. These are some of my favorite scenes. I loved this lady right here. Elsa or Elsie, the maid lady. I liked her. She apparently was the aunt was an aunt in Sanford and Sons. And I watched one of her bits, like she was the sister of of the lead female or whatever, and it was their whatever the guy's name is, Red, I think is his name, the main actor, the main, I mean,
Oh yeah,
character, Sanford. He
yeah.
he and her did not have a good relationship. So I saw like a clip where um he was like, "Oh, hi" to the husband, and the the aunt walks by and goes, "Bye," and like slams the door on their faces or whatever, and that like became like a running joke, I guess, that she would always do that to her. Um, and so anyway, I absolutely loved her in this movie. Um, my usually my biggest gripe in these kind of movies is when people talk to themselves, because I'm like, that's even though I do that myself, like it just seems written, doesn't seem real or anything, like
Mhm.
seems like a lot of times it's just used for exposition. And this was funny as hell. Like I just laughed my ass off whenever she talked to herself. Like she's like, "Oh boy, he left. He left. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Should I go see her? Should I not go see her? What's going on? Oh, oh, okay. I'm gonna go upstairs. You know what? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna make myself a drink. Right? And she makes herself a drink and like, oh man, I need another one. Right? It almost felt like it was improv. They just told her this is what you need to do, right? And then what was her line? I don't know if they have it in the quotes. It was one of my favorite lines of the whole movie. Um, and I did not write it down. Um, well, she said great googly moogly, which I always love. She said, "No more grieving, I'm leaving."
No more grieving. I'm leaving.
That's the funny. She's like, "I'm leaving, I'm leaving." Like she left, and she was the smartest one of them all. She
No,
didn't die because she was like, "Screw this shit, I'm out of here." You know, it's funny because you see jokes on like Scary Movie or something where they'll be like the black people would always be like, "That's not real. My ass will be out of there in a second," right? She was that person that they were talking about,
mm,
like you white people can deal with your white people shit. I'm out of here. Like I'm gonna live and I'm gonna go be on. I'm gonna continue being on Sanford's son. Whoosh,
yeah.
you know.
I'm up for a TV role. Forget this.
Yeah, I had a better role in a TV show. I'm out. You know. So it was funny. I loved her. I adored her. When she saw the green smoke coming out, like I was like, why are you getting closer to it? You know? I'm like, I see green smoke coming out of something. I'm leaving. Just like her. I'm like, I'm out. Like, I'm sorry. I can't. I ain't even gonna, the police can deal with it if they want, but I'm out. Like I'm not I ain't what was it no more grieving, I'm leaving. And then she was like, there's some strange shit going on in this house. So she had all the best lines. Like I just absolutely adored her.
Like that
Um
sucker left me high and dry.
yeah. That was it the guy was like, "Hey, have you seen Elsie? She was supposed to come over." No, no. She said that about Aunt Cora too. Oh, she'll show up. But she meant that her body will show up, sometime, or whatever. Elsie, I don't, yeah, she never killed, so Elsie's just like, I ain't working. I quit,
Yeah.
like, and then the gardener never showed back up, and, like, you would think that he would start putting two and two together once he starts realizing people are missing, that maybe considering everybody's been saying she's been killing people, like she's been a demon possessed, that maybe something's going, something's rotten in Denmark, you know?
Well, essentially, he's been around for a couple of those deaths when she was around too. So you gotta start asking yourself, is this really coincidence?
hmm Yeah. So, then what was one of my other favorite scenes in the movie? Because I love that. Like, I loved her character, and I love the hypnosis scene. So that scene where he puts her under the hypnosis, and then she starts kind of freaking out about her aunt staying with her aunt. She hates her aunt. She's back to being a 10-year-old kid. And then she's running into the mausoleum, and then all of a sudden she takes the form of the demon, you know, and
Hmm.
stuff and everything. I thought that was so cool. Like I'm like, ah, interesting. I've never seen that in a demon possession movie, ever. So kudos to them for doing that. Like if somebody does it now, I'd be like, that's from Mausoleum.
Yeah, they definitely took a lot of their own risks in this one, so you gotta commend them on that one. Like I said, some of it definitely worked, and then some of it, didn't. It is definitely a mixed bag. On that one, like I said, the story is definitely a mixed bag. The special effects and the gore are definitely very worthy, of watching alone. Then of course, if they're into if you're all into the good gratuitous nudity, mostly focusing on just one girl, of course. Then
Yeah, that's the only thing I really like. Another thing I don't like sometimes is when just one chick gets naked the whole time, because once again, it makes me feel weird. Like, okay, I saw her one naked once, that's cool, but now it just feels like a porno in a way. Like, because like the chick's just pretty much naked most of the movie, or whatever, like
it
take,
definitely has that tone. I've came across a few of those where I thought I was getting horror, and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's got horror undertones to it, but I feel like the plot of this is going in a different direction.
yeah,
Uh, Living Dead Girls. That's a good example. I actually I bought that movie on a blind whim once, not knowing what I was getting myself into. I was actually thinking it was going to be something about dead zombie girls coming back to life, and it's about one, and it's about her apparently just seducing all these rich guys to leave her dead island alone. So she just constantly seduces them and seduces them, screws them and screws them and screws them, and then eventually they can't handle her passion anymore, and they all die in some way, shape, or form. So I
that's a
was like,
porno. Like I feel
yeah,
like that's a horror porno.
yeah, and like like you said, Doug, I almost wondered at times, especially during the gardener and her makeout scene, that was one where like it's like when you watch like Friday the 13th or like you watch Halloween or whatever, and you see those sex scenes, like it's like a quick little kiss, kissy here, like a quick little grab the boobs, or the quick little makeout, then the girl quickly takes her top off, and then she falls on top of him, blah blah blah, and then bam, killer comes in, enter and kill.
Right.
Uh, this one, especially with the gardener, that was actually like it almost felt like that, like 70s sexploitation kind of sex scene almost, where it had it went gratuitous and longer than it I felt like you would normally get out of your average horror movie.
Yeah, pretty much. I'd
Yeah,
imagine. I mean, it went a little bit too much, I guess. But
yeah, it
I mean,
borders.
maybe that's what they thought they needed to like attract attention, for them. You know what I mean? Like, um, Hollywood plays it safe. Independent films don't, And this is more of an independent film than I think it wasn't made by Hollywood, by anyone in Hollywood. It was made by a mob guy, So there you go.
Well, and come on, let's be realistic here. Like, and anyone who listens or watches this, is going to will probably agree too that throughout the ages of entertainment, if there are a few things that are almost deadlocks to usually sell, good comedy, nudity, glossy action adventures.
Right.
Those are just staples that if you incorporate that into movie, you're going to get at least some type of general audience to it. It may be small, it may be big, but you're definitely serving crowds that are definitely there who are willing to drop it. I mean, it was even in the horror world, like, like for the gore fanatics, like, they would probably love Mausoleum. I mean, uh, there are plenty of like, I know plenty of horror people out there, like, who want lots of nudity in their films and
Mhm.
stuff. Um, so I mean, I'm not sure how they would feel about Mausoleum. I mean, because usually that crowd usually wants multiple different girls, not just the same girl flashing the same set over and over again. Uh,
There's that there's that great scene in the movie Knocked Up where he's trying to describe his like Seth Rogen's trying to describe his website, right? And he was like, you know, say you like Meg Ryan. And she's like, I love Meg Ryan. He was like, yeah. Well, if you want to see where she's nude, you know, you go to our site and it will tell you she's nude in this movie, she's nude in this movie, she's nude in this movie, right? It was like, and or no, she's nude in like one movie, but it's like multiple times. And he was like, you know, she's she's not Sally, she's Harry, that kind of thing. Like makes jokes about it and stuff like that. Like she goes, apparently she shows her bush in one of the movies that she but in the cut or something like that, I think was what the movie was called. But anyway, the point is that there are actors who have done like the nude role in multiple scenes, or whatever. But usually there's more than one person also doing it too. So it doesn't feel awkward like this did, like this felt really like gross in a way because of how much just one person did nudity, you know?
no, I would definitely agree with you because when it was that one girl over and over again, even though in this one it was obviously consenting in the sense that the girl was luring them in to obviously kill them and stuff, which is where my similarities to this next example were. But in some ways, it was almost kind of like watching a little bit like the original "I Spit on Your Grave," where it was kind of like, man, some of these scenes just feel very just not okay to watch and stuff.
Mm.
I just
Makes
don't
you
feel
feel really weird.
exactly like like I just should be watching this. And no, I definitely agree with you on that one. I mean, it was kind of, it kind of just felt, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what the word to describe it is. I mean, not like, I was going to use the word force, but I don't think that's the right word though. It's not really force, but it felt overplayed, overdone.
Right.
And like, I don't know. I mean, I wish you would have at least done some other angle or something, like, maybe there's like some chick that's interested in her husband or something, and like, she's gonna take care of her, and at some point during her death, hers pop out, like, their girl's boobs pop out or something. I mean, I don't know. I mean, but yeah, they do the same girl over and over again. You kind of hit the head on the nail. It really starts to turn into like a porno at that point. It feels like, especially when it's focused around the same person getting nude all the time,
And having sex or whatever. Like, I mean,
multiple different people. It definitely scales that porno vibe a little. But once again, though, it's kind of like that mesh blend that we were talking about, like where they weren't 100% sure where they wanted to go. I think even in their tones a little bit, like, maybe that could even have had some corresponding differences and stuff about the directions they wanted to take.
right. Exactly. What were some of your favorite scenes?
Um, I definitely love the delivery guy scene a lot. Like I said, just that score, that special effects, the eyeball, that was really cool. Uh,
Well, it was just so strange. Like, apparently, I guess the gardener sent her plants, and then he's just delivering the plants, right? That's it.
yeah.
Like, like,
I mean, I know
if
that.
she was like, you can call your boss and blah blah blah, I would have been like, it's okay, you can keep them or I can take them away. I don't care. Like I don't need to call my boss here. But then she kind of gives that like sexy kind of thing, like,
Yep.
you're gonna come in here, you're gonna have sex with me, sort of thing. Which he tries to at one point, and she pushes him away and says, call his boss first, and he's like all pissy about it. And I'm like, well, I mean, and then she kills him with the phone, basically like the ear and all the blood on the phone, and stuff like, you know, um, which when you see the phone later, because the husband comes in, sees the phone all bloody, and was like, "What happened?" And she's just like nothing, like, you know.
Well, it's no big deal, ever. And the thing is, it wasn't like a drop or two blood where, like, oh, maybe she pricked a finger or something. I mean, there was enough blood on there to say that at the very least, her like palm of her hand or something, like, got sliced across or something like that.
Right.
I mean, like in
There's a lot of blood on that phone.
exactly. I mean, it definitely it was more than just a little prick. Like, it would have been a significant cut, at least on some you would have noticed on her body if it was on her. And the fact that you don't see a cut on her brings up even more red flags. I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, then there's blood on the phone. You have no cuts. Who else was here?
Yeah, like, oh, the gardener stopped by for a little bit. He must have pricked his hand or something, you know.
Yeah, those darn rose thorns can really gush a vein.
So yeah, okay, so somebody pointed out in a video, and this makes me laugh, so I want to bring it to the end. We'll cut kind of to the end, but at the end of the movie, he kind of, what is, the doctor had met with his friend, and she had told him, you just need to follow what the diary says, basically, and go find that crown of thorns at the mausoleum and put it on the girl's head while she's a demon, right? So he's like, he's okay with doing all of this, right? Because he's the Dr. Loomis. He's the, whatever. So he drives to the mausoleum and just picks up the crown of thorns off of like the door. Doesn't even go inside the mausoleum, doesn't even have to do anything crazy, just picks up the crown of thorns, which I'm like, why is there a crown of thorns on the door of the mausoleum anyway? But well, whatever. Like none of that's ever really explained. But he goes, they had to figure out a way to stop this demon. And I thought they were going to bring in an exorcist or something. Like, I thought that's where they were going with this. But I guess this is an easier way than exorcist, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you might be right. Maybe they wanted to take their own little like angle, their own little liberty, and not try to come off looking like they were trying to be a carbon copy of The Exorcist, maybe. But I'm with you though. I mean, whenever you hear demonic, first thing you always think of is like some type of exorcism. I mean,
Uh-huh.
like Night of the Demons or Dario's Demons or anything
Or
like that.
The Exorcist,
Yeah, they all had like even though it may not have always involved priests, it was some type of cultural passage of some religious base that would extract the demons. Sometimes it's some old Latin language or something from way back in the Dark Ages or something.
And this was like a therapist, so it's more science, he doesn't believe this stuff, until until he sees it, then he believes it, right? When he sees her turn, that's when he just realized, this is real, you know. So then he goes to put the crown of thorns on her head like that. Like, just, there's like no fight or anything. There's just like, that's it. And I was like, that's kind of lackluster. Like, that's kind of boring, you know?
You really did a big build up all for naught.
I know. And then, like, the demons in the mausoleum, and then she has to put the crown of thorns, I guess, back on the body to, like, and then close up the crypt, and then it's over, I guess. But, like, nobody's still allowed to go into the mausoleum. And I'm like, thinking, okay. So if nobody's allowed to go into the mausoleum, right, where all of this started from, um, why was it made to be like the first born woman in the Nomad family, which is weird that the demon is called Nomad. Does that mean that my Moody family is a demon name? Like, is there a Moody demon out there? I don't know. Michael, or is there a McGlynn, demon out there? My name
Oh,
is McGlynn, you know.
there is somewhere.
Um, so anyway, she goes and puts it on and then we see sort of like her as a 10-year-old, and then flashback to her as an adult, her as 10-year-old, flashback, and I'm like, I'm so confused. What is going on? Is this guy seeing this? Or are we just seeing this? What is literally happening right now? Like I told you when I first finished it, and I sent you that message, I said, this is a wackadoodle film. It is that is the best way to describe it. It is wackadoodle. Like it is the weirdest movie I've seen in a while. And in fact, I didn't know if I was gonna like it or not because I was like, this is extremely bad already from the very beginning of them in the cemetery and her running and everything. I'm like, the fuck is going on? This feels like you know, a B movie like from today, with this is a Dustin Ferguson type thing. Like what the hell? You know? Um, yeah, but it got better. It got way better.
Oh
And
yeah.
uh and the acting got better. I mean, I think just that first opening scene was just terrible, and it sort of like lowered the bar so everything else could get better, you know? But man, I feel weird because like some people might watch that movie and only see that 10 minutes and be like, or 5 minutes or whatever the opening was and be like, nope, nope, this is just bad acting already, you know?
And they should really give it a fair shake. I mean, it's like I said, I would not call it like I would never call it a classic or anything like that. But I feel like but then again, though, bear in mind, Sleepaway Camp wasn't a classic when it first came out either. But over time and over resonation, eventually the right groups of people caught wind of it, and it became a cult classic. Uh, Not saying that will happen with this one, but I can see some potential in that being a thing. I mean, like I said, I really think like this is definitely one of those movies where like, am I gonna go out my way to watch it again? Probably not. But like, if I'm hanging out one night and I see it pop up and it's right there for me to watch and it's available, yeah, I'd go back and watch it again.
Yeah. No, I'd probably buy this on Blu-ray at some point. It's just right now it's like I see it for like $25 on eBay and I'm like, don't really want to spend $25 right now on it, but like maybe next year sometime I'll buy it on Blu-ray because I'm trying to get my Vinegar Syndrome library up, and this is a movie that I'll probably want to show people, you know, um, and watch with friends or something, or whatever. And I want to hear if they have commentary or behind the scenes stuff, interviews and whatnot, because I'd like to know more about the making of this movie. But the movie itself, I think is just sort of it's fun, it's enjoyable. I was pleasantly surprised too.
Oh yeah, no, I really was. I mean, I know when we first got on, I was even telling you the same thing. I was like, yeah, I caught it. I was like, you know what? I surprisingly ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I was going to. When I first saw it, kind of like you in the beginning, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be like one of those ones where like I was almost wondering it's gonna feel like an overdubbed up movie most of the time. It's gonna probably just be drawn out a lot and uh but to my surprise, though, it was actually very enjoyable. And I mean, I know I've said it a million times, but like I said, the special effects and the gore really impressed me a lot on this one. I mean, uh, that alone, it's worth the eye candy of the gore effects alone. But like I said, the story, I feel like if they just picked one direction, it would have been a much more solid movie. And given the two directions they were kind of going back and forth on, if I'm to be brutally honest, I think they would have been better off keeping it more of a more centralized, sexualized Carrie.
Right.
Uh, I just feel like that was a good route they were going. The deaths seem to kind of more align up more with that kind of like style anyway. Like it's like whenever she got mad or aggravated or agitated, that's when like the killings would happen like most of the time and stuff. So I feel like it was almost triggered by emotion to almost to a point similar to what Carrie was. Uh, I feel like if they went that route, I mean, they could have fleshed out a much more easier and more coherent story. The demonic parts, like you said, even they were very lackluster at times, like ending up the war crown and everything. But also, I don't know. I just don't feel like the demonic route was something that you really needed in this one outside to show that you could do really cool demon makeup.
Well, it was
Don't get me
that it was also the carry part, and stuff like they'd have to explain that. And they explained it with being a demon. Demons can do that, I guess. I don't know. I know, I never met a demon, so I've never asked them, can you levitate people and burst out their chests and stuff, And they'd be like, yeah, that's normal demon shit.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, you could have probably kept on supernatural. Like I said, Carrie got away with it, and other ones later on down the road did as well and stuff. Like Firestarter, you could argue that one's kind of on that a little bit that same level. That emotions set them off to do bad things to people. Like like and they can control things around them and stuff. Uh, levitation is just another layer to the many layers that they already started to do back in that day. I would call it at that point. I mean, I definitely think you could get away with it, especially with that kind of audience back then. I don't think they would have given it two thoughts on the matter. They would have been like, "Oh yeah, this is kind of like Carrie," but we get to see Carrie's boobs.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would have loved to see Kira's boobs, you know. Um, Anywho, I guess that's about it. I mean, I think we've tackled everything, and we've talked to death of this movie. So there you go.
So
I really enjoyed it. I would definitely recommend this.
I was actually going to ask you, um, 1 through 10, 10 being the highest, one being the lowest. What would you rank this movie?
7?
That's actually kind of funny. That was exactly the number I was going to go with too. I was actually leaning towards a 7. It's nowhere near like a great or beautiful, like flawless movie, but it's got enough enjoyment and entertainment factor and effects that for me at least, yeah. I mean,
Like if I give it a 5-star scale, I would have given it a 3.5. Like it's a pretty decently made movie. It's pretty good, but it's not the greatest, and it's not
it's not.
but it's not bad, and so
Oh, I know. I mean, and especially when you learn more about it, it sounds like it's a lot of these people's first go arounds too. I mean, like as far as
yeah, I mean, a lot of
filming.
people their first movies suck, like
Yeah, this was not a bad first crack for a lot of these people. I mean, if I were them personally, I would wear this movie as a badge of honor. To be quite frank with you,
but now I need to own Super Seal as well.
Super Seal's down on the list.
What?
I was just laughing at Super Seal. I was like, there you go. That's got to make our list one day. Like
I don't
we're
know. I
gonna.
have to figure out a place to put it, like on Quick Review Thursday or something. But Super Seal, I don't even know if it's available anywhere. It does not look like it's on Tubi or anything. Um, but I really, really badly want to see that movie. So, Super Seal, movie. Uh, see if that's anywhere to watch. Um, what the fuck? Super Seal on TCM. Turner Classic Movies has Super Seal listed on it. Oh, you can watch the full movie on YouTube.
Mm.
Awesome. Now I'm like interested. Let me see if this is actually a good video footage of it. It's on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, YouTube has some good ones. My that one I did a post about a few months ago, Summer Camp Nightmare, one of those ones I liked back way back in the day. I actually
Right.
got I actually caught that one like on YouTube for free, and that actually was really good quality. I was really surprised. I'm like, it had a couple of soft spots occasionally here and there, but it was only for a second or two, and it was usually in some of the more wide shots, so it didn't really bother you that much. You kind of get used to that a little. You do the wide shots, you get a little blurriness sometimes in the background for some of the wides. Uh, so when you saw that, even though you could tell it was more than just that, it was something that you can forgive as long as it wasn't a constant.
Right. Right. Well, there you go. Check out Super Seal on YouTube and check out Mausoleum on Tubi, if you haven't watched it yet. Also buy it on Vinegar Syndrome, buy from them because, uh, it looks like it's worth it, to own, or whatnot. It's just like I would buy it if it weren't so close to Christmas right now, so kind of a bad time to buy gifts, like to myself, or whatever, when I gotta buy gifts for other people. Um, but maybe Mausoleum would be a good gift for somebody else to have. So feel free to go buy that for someone else. Um, so to let everybody know, this show won't be back till March, just like most of the other shows. Gonna take a 2 month break. Then we'll be back. I don't know. Hopefully Rebecca will be back. But if not, she'll be back sometime. I'm guessing, I'm hoping, I like doing this with other people. I like having special guests like you, Mike, who I don't normally have, on the show or whatever. Because we even talked about like we do horror film lovers, which does not do where is not allowed to do 80s or 90s stuff because my 80s and 90s ones are already being done, and stuff. So it's nice to have you on this show like this or maybe even 90s horror at some point so that you can review 80s or 90s movies with me.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, those are two of my favorite generations right there, the '80s and the '90s. There was I mean, that right there is my childhood and my backbone. I mean, so many great movies that I grew up just loving. And the best part is I can say about the majority of them, at least, most of them still have good playback value. There's definitely a handful I've watched it again. I'm like, yeah,
Doesn't
I must,
hold up.
yeah, I uh, I don't know why I thought this was so great back in the day because I
Well,
don't know.
and a lot of that sometimes stems through what the world is like now. You know, the world is so different. Um, we're not the same people we were when we were in the 90s and 80s, even if we were just kids or whatever in the 80s and 90s, like or so, um it uh in a way it's just the idea is that um we live this life right now that is sort of bigger in scope, and stuff. And like because we have the internet and we have YouTube and we have all these resources and everything, there are things that people want to get across that is completely different from the generation that we grew up on, you know. And some of
Oh,
those movies don't hold up.
true. For me, I think a lot of it is just like I think it was the stories. I guess for me, being a kid, a simpler time entertained me. Just it didn't take much. Like, if you have a couple of cool like effect scenes or a couple of good laugh out loud kind of quick moments, more likely I already love the movie. And without even really paying attention to much of
Once
the.
I saw Elsie, like, show's over. And I was like, I love this movie. Like they could have made a whole comedy with Elsie and I would have watched it. Like a spin-off comedy of her character could go into different people's houses that she does becomes like a maid for or whatever, and stuff. That would be to me that would be fun. She could have had her own TV show where she played Elsie the maid, and I would have been a-okay with it.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, this movie didn't do that well.
yeah. I mean, I could see why too. I mean, given that time frame, like I said, that was like, I mean, you were at that point, you were very much transitioning into that 80s style horror gem genre. You were getting out of that 70s style, you going more into that 80s style. And it definitely showed on that one too, because like a lot of cinematography had that more of that 70s style horror tone to it, but the outfits, definitely the scripts and the writing in it definitely felt more of a 80s horror kind of tone movie at that point. So it's a little bit the best of both worlds on that one. I mean, a lot of great classics like horror movies came out of the 70s too. I mean, our first Halloween movie was in the 70s. Even before that, the original Black Christmas. I believe When a Stranger Calls was also in the 70s.
Mm, interesting. By the way, you can if you want to, people, if you're interested, the Mausoleum was at 204 North Evergreen Avenue in Los Angeles, and it's at the Evergreen Cemetery. So, that was a really nice cemetery, by the way. Very big cemetery. So, it was nice. And that house they had, the one that she inherited and everything from her childhood, that was fucking nice. Like, very well done, put together. Like I enjoyed this movie. Like I just thought everything did well. I mean, story wise, there's some issues, but that's
Yep,
whatever.
yep. Well, I mean, it's like I said. I mean, I think if they just really put their foot down and just set their mind on one single direction to take this film, I think it would have been a solid across the board, and it probably would have gone up another point for me. I probably would have brought it up to at least an 8, maybe even a 8.5 at that point, because
Nice.
I mean, it had all the charm you'd want in an 80s horror movie. Great makeup, great kills. You did get the typical 80s nudity that you're accustomed to seeing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
at least I mean, like it checked all the boxes. I think the problem though was it went to try to check too many boxes instead of just focusing on the core ones that you really needed. Which in my opinion, for the most part, they did check all those boxes, but I think they got too ambitious to try to check more than they really needed to.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Michael. And if Rebecca's not back, I'm sure I'll get you or Madeline or both on the show at some point to do this stuff again. So, everybody else, join me in March where we will be back again with I have no idea what. Like there's nothing set yet. That in fact, when I hit up Michael, I didn't even have an idea really. Like, so I just kind of looked something up quickly and was like, let's do this one. It looks cool, you know.
Good
And
call.
it could have been shit. So thank God it wasn't.
Oh no, like I said, no, that was actually a very fun find, man.
Yep. So everybody go check it out. And until then, everybody, bye.
Bye, guys.
80's horror films.